I've been watching a lot of the stories on this channel recently, and I never thought I'd be the one writing in. But here I am. I guess I just needed to get it off my chest to find closure. And if it even helps one of you guys from walking into the same trap, then that's a huge win. My name is Stephen, 54 years old, and back in the UK I had a good life. Not perfect, but pretty stable. I have some rental properties and a dividend stock portfolio, because I always knew I wanted to make a move abroad and have income flowing in, not necessarily to become rich, but to be free. After the pandemic, everything started to feel hollow and depressed. That feeling was made worse by what happened with my partner of 6 years. She lied, manipulated, and in the end, she cheated on me. I gave her everything: my time, trust, and love. However, she treated it like it meant nothing. After finding out that she cheated, I took care of some business and left. I had prepared for this moment my whole life. I finally had the freedom to go wherever I wanted. No job to hold me back, and no one waiting for me at home. Thailand seemed like the perfect place to start over. Somewhere warm, quiet, and far away from everything that had fallen apart. And for a while, it was exactly that. Life was good, and for the first time since a while, I felt like I came back to life. But nothing could prepare me for what was about to come. I thought that I had met a lovely woman who smiled sweetly, called me her future, but as it turns out, she ended up turning my life upside down. By the time I landed in Thailand, it was early 2022. The world was still shaking off the dust of the pandemic, and tourists were only just starting to return. Flights were half full, beaches were half empty, and somehow that suited me just fine. I wasn't in a rush at all. In fact, I didn't want to be anywhere fast. I arrived in Koh Samui because it felt far away enough from everything: the cold weather, the grey skies, and especially the memories. I didn't want neon lights or wild nightlife like in Pattaya. I didn't want to be surrounded by noise like in Bangkok. I wanted something softer. The island greeted me with warm air and slow smiles. I found a small bungalow in Lamai, nothing fancy. I spent the first 2 weeks walking the beach in the mornings and reading at beach cafes in the afternoons. Sometimes I didn't speak to anyone all day, and that was okay. Silence was something I hadn't heard in years. Back in England, things had gotten loud. My ex had a way of turning every small disagreement into a storm. Over time, it chipped away at me. I didn't realize how badly I needed peace until I was halfway around the world just to find it. I told myself I was done with women for a while. Maybe forever. I wasn't bitter, just bruised. When you give someone your heart and they treat it like a bargaining chip, it does something to you. Makes you cautious. Makes you second-guess the good moments because you're waiting for the turn. But of course, that's when another troublemaker entered my life. It was a quiet Tuesday night. I hadn't planned to go out, but the fan in my bungalow wasn't doing its job, and I wanted a cold drink. I wandered into a small bar tucked between 2 massage shops. It wasn't loud like the others. There was no music blasting, no girls pulling at your arm to come in, just soft lighting and a few empty stools. That's where I saw her. She was leaning on the bar with her chin resting on her hand, looking half asleep. She perked up when I walked in but didn't rush over. She just smiled. That kind of smile that feels like it's just for you, even if it probably wasn't. I ordered a beer and we talked. Her name was Nok. She was 36, from Nakhon Si Thammarat, and had been living on Koh Samui for about a year. She said she didn't like working in bars but did it to help her parents. Her younger brother was still in school and she was sending money home. There was something about the way she spoke. Her English was decent, but it was more than that. She seemed gentle, calm. She wasn't trying too hard to impress me. Instead, she showed interest and asked me questions about my life, about what I liked, and about why I came to Thailand. I didn't say much about the breakup, just that I needed a change. She nodded and said, "I understand," and I believed her. Over the next few days, I found myself going back to that same bar. Not for the drinks, for her. We didn't talk about anything deep, not really. Just food, the weather, things she missed from home. But it felt good to talk again, especially with someone who didn't know my past and wasn't trying to fix me. She never asked for money. She didn't flirt the way the other girls did. If anything, she seemed shy. When I asked if she wanted to get lunch one afternoon, she said yes, like it was a surprise. We started spending more time together, riding scooters around the island, visiting temples. She took me to a night market and ordered food I couldn't pronounce. One night, she cooked me fried fish and sticky rice at her place, and we sat on the floor watching old Thai dramas on her phone. I told myself not to get too close. I reminded myself she was still a bar girl, even if she said she wasn't like the others. But the truth is, I was already falling for her. Looking back now, I can see the signs. The way she dodged certain questions. The way her stories changed just a little each time. But at the time, I wasn't listening for lies. I was listening for hope. I needed to believe that maybe this time I'd found something real. I didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. One night, as we were sitting on the beach watching the waves roll in, Nok turned to me and said, "You know what would be good? If you open a bar. Then you don't have to be alone, and I can help you." I didn't answer at first. We were eating grilled corn from a street cart, and I remember just watching the steam rise into the dark air, trying to figure out if she was joking. But when I looked over, she wasn't smiling. She was serious. She reached out and touched my hand lightly, like the way someone touches something delicate. "I don't want to work in bars anymore," she said. "But if it's your bar, it's different." At the time, it made sense. I mean, I'd always had this quiet dream of running a pub one day. Back in England, I used to sit in my local and imagine what I'd do differently, which ales I'd have on tap, what kind of music, how I'd treat customers like old friends. I liked the idea of being the kind of guy who had a place, a home, with doors that never really closed. Now, on this little island, Nok was offering me a version of that dream, and it came wrapped in the promise of companionship. She even had ideas. She knew someone with a friend who had a small space just off the main strip in Lamai. She said it wasn't big, but it had a working counter, a few stools, and a small area upstairs that could be used for storage or living. "Only needs a little fixing," she said, "but it's perfect." I went to see it the next morning, and she wasn't wrong. It was simple, nothing fancy. A bit run down, but it had character, wooden beams that creaked, a faded sign still hanging from the front, and a soft glow that filtered in through the open front doors. Within a week, I signed the lease. The total startup cost came to about 1.5 million baht. I had the money. Between my rental income and dividends, I could afford it without touching my savings too much. It felt like a reasonable investment for a life I'd been quietly dreaming of. And Nok? She was thrilled. More thrilled than I expected, actually. She offered to help decorate, to hire the staff, to make a little menu of snacks and drinks that tourists would like. "My friends can help," she said. "They've worked in bars before. They know what customers want." At the time, that felt like a blessing. Now I know better. The bar opened in June, and for a while, it all felt like it was working. The first month was promising, not packed, but steady. A mix of tourists, a few regulars, and even some curious locals. I made just enough to cover costs, pay the girls their salary and tips, and still have a bit left over for myself. I'd stand behind the bar some nights, pouring drinks and chatting to customers. And Nok would float around, laughing, sitting with customers and lighting up the room with her presence. She was proud of it. Of us, I thought. Her friends, the ones who now worked at the bar, were bubbly and friendly, always quick with a drink and a joke. They brought in customers too, mostly older expats and solo travelers who seemed to like the attention. It felt lively, like a family, but that's the problem with illusions. They shimmer so beautifully until you blink and realize you've been looking at something that was never really there. The first red flag came in late July. I noticed one of the girls taking money from a customer, not at the register, but at the table. I didn't say anything that night. I told myself maybe it was just a tip. Then it happened again. And again. By August, I started to hear whispers. Other bar owners making offhand comments. One guy said, "Your girls are good at business, but not the kind you want in your books." I didn't know what to say. I laughed it off, but my stomach turned. When I brought it up to Nok, she brushed it away with a wave of her hand. "They're just friendly," she said. "You know how it is here. Tourists like attention." I stared at her across the table and wanted to believe her. Wanted so badly to hold on to this idea that our bar was different, that she was different. But something in her eyes had shifted. Not much. Just enough that I noticed it. Looking back now, I should have pressed harder. I should have asked better questions, or at least paid closer attention. But I didn't want to rock the boat. After all, I had a bar. I had a girlfriend. I had an island life most people only dream about, so I looked away, and that's when the real damage started. The bar was doing well, at least on paper. We were getting a steady stream of customers, especially during the weekends. Some nights we were packed, with music playing low and laughter spilling into the street. I even started to see familiar faces coming back night after night. Guys who said they liked the vibe. But even as the numbers looked good, something inside me started to shift. It was small things at first. The cash drawer didn't always match the receipts. Bottles of liquor seemed to go missing faster than they were being sold. I chalked it up to being new at this. Maybe I just didn't know how much stock we really used, but deep down, I knew better. Nock had started spending more time outside the bar during the evenings. She'd say she had errands, or that she was helping one of her friends who got sick. When she was around, she still acted sweet, cooked dinner at home, curled up next to me after closing time, but it started to feel like she was living in a different world than I was. One night, I closed up early and walked home without telling her. I wanted to surprise her, maybe cook her something for a change. I imagined her smile when I walked through the door, but when I got home, the place was dark. Her scooter was gone. I waited an hour. I tried calling her. No answer. It was after midnight when she finally walked in. Hair done, lipstick fresh, not a hint of guilt in her expression. "I was helping Fawn," she said casually, tossing her bag on the table. She had a fight with her boyfriend. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something about the way she said it, calm, practiced, set off an alarm that I couldn't unhear. That was when the seed was planted. The one that said maybe she's not who she says she is. However, I didn't act. I told myself I needed more proof. I didn't want to ruin everything based on a hunch, but I would find out sooner than later that my suspicion was justified. One of the girls, Mai, a younger one who'd only been working at the bar a few months, came to me one afternoon when we were alone. She looked nervous, shifting her weight from foot to foot like a kid caught sneaking out. "Boss," she said, "I want to quit." I asked her why. I liked Mai. She was one of the few who never caused drama and always showed up on time. She hesitated, then said quietly, "Knock no good. She use your bar. She take money." I blinked, not sure what I was hearing. "What do you mean she takes money? She let her friends take men upstairs. They pay her, not you." My stomach dropped. I asked her to explain again. She did, in simple, broken English that hit harder than any polished sentence ever could. According to Mai, Nock had been letting a few of her friends use the storage area upstairs, the one I barely ever went into, for private time, with customers. The girls were keeping the money and giving Nock a cut. None of it went through the bar. It was all off the books. I felt like I'd been slapped, then kicked while I was still reeling. I thanked Mai, told her she could go, and she did. I never saw her again. That night, I sat alone on the beach and stared at the waves, trying to make sense of it all. Was it true? Was this whole thing just a front? Was I the only one who didn't know what was going on? I didn't sleep. I didn't confront Nock right away either. I needed to be sure. The next day, I made a decision. I would check the upstairs room myself quietly during business hours. And when I did, I found exactly what I was afraid of. There was a mattress on the floor, a blanket, 2 empty beer bottles, and a used tissue box, not the kind of storage room I'd imagined. I didn't wait that time. I walked straight downstairs and asked Nock to come outside with me. When I told her what I'd found, she didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just looked away and said, "It was just business." Just business. That sentence rang in my ears for days. Here I was, pouring my heart, my money, and my trust into this dream, and for her, it was just business. That was the moment something broke in me, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet, sharp break, like glass cracking under your feet. Didn't know what to do next. Close the bar? Fire everyone? Kick her out? The worst part wasn't the money. It was the realization that she never saw me as her partner. I was the opportunity. I was the setup for her play, and I never saw it coming. But this was just the beginning. After that night, things changed between us. I tried to carry on like nothing had happened, but something inside me wouldn't let go. I'd always been the kind of man who tried to see the best in people. But now, every time Nock smiled at me, I couldn't stop wondering what else she'd lied about. We didn't talk about it again, not properly. She apologized once, half-heartedly, saying, I only did it because we needed money. But the bar was doing fine. She knew it. That excuse didn't hold. I let her stay, mostly out of confusion. I didn't want to believe that someone who'd made me feel whole again could be so careless with my trust. I kept thinking, maybe she got caught up in it. Maybe she'll come back to me now, but things didn't go back to how they were. She stopped cooking, stopped staying at the bar in the evenings. She said she needed space, that she was tired of people gossiping. She still came home, but it was like living with a stranger. It was a Thursday afternoon when I got a message on Facebook from someone I didn't know. A Dutch guy named Lars. The message said, Hey mate, don't know if this is your girlfriend, but I've been seeing this girl called Nock from Lamai. Says she's single. Thought I should let you know. My heart dropped into my stomach. I stared at the screen for a long time. I clicked through to his profile. He was real. His pictures showed him at beaches and cafes, some of the same places that Nock had been saying she was going to alone. I replied, trying to keep calm. Yes, that's my girlfriend. Or, I thought she was. He replied again. Said he was sorry. Said she never mentioned anyone. Sent me a picture. The two of them at a beach bar, drinks in hand. She was smiling. Not the polite smile she gave to strangers. The real one. The one I used to think was just for me. I felt sick. I didn't tell her that night. I stayed quiet. But inside, I was spiraling. The next day, I went to the bar and told the girls we were closing for the weekend. They didn't ask questions. Maybe they knew more than I did. I spent the night walking the streets of Lamai, retracing the route I took when I first arrived. The island looked different now. Or maybe I just saw it differently. Everything that felt like magic before, the sea breeze, the quiet roads, the sound of waves at night, now felt like a trick. A beautiful mask hiding something I didn't want to admit. I'd been played. Not once, but twice. First financially, then emotionally. And as I sat on the beach, head in my hands, that's when things got worse. A message from the landlord. We need to talk. Rent review is overdue. We may increase by 20% starting next month. Please confirm. Just like that, the one piece of this whole messy picture that still felt somewhat steady, the bar, was about to become another problem. I laughed out loud, a sharp, broken laugh that startled the couple sitting a few meters away from me. I must have looked crazy. It was all falling apart. Nock came home late that night. I was sitting at the small table in our rented place, a beer in my hand, the lights off. She didn't even flinch when she saw me. I asked her straight out, "Who is Lars?" She froze. Didn't say anything at first. Then, with a little shrug, she muttered, "Just a friend." I nodded. "A friend who thinks you're single?" She didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She didn't even try to explain. She just said, "I didn't think you'd find out." And that was it. The end of whatever fantasy I'd been clinging to. I told her I wanted her out. She didn't argue, just packed a small bag and left without looking back. I didn't sleep that night. Or the one after. The silence in that room felt heavier than anything I'd ever known. It was the silence of being fooled, of trusting too quickly, of building something on sand and watching it vanish with the tide. I'd lost the girl. I was losing the bar. And the dream I came to Thailand chasing now felt like a joke. But here's the thing. Sometimes you have to be broken to start again. And I wasn't finished yet. The weeks that followed were quiet. I kept the bar open through the rest of the season, mostly because I didn't know what else to do. The girls stayed professional, but the energy had changed. The charm was gone. Customers came and went, but I stopped chatting. I didn't stand behind the bar like I used to. I just sat at the far table, waiting for the lease to end. I was done pretending I could turn this thing around. I didn't blame the island, or even Thailand. I blamed myself for wanting so badly to feel loved again that I ignored every warning sign, for thinking Nok was different just because I needed her to be. One morning, a few weeks after Nok left, I took a long walk up into the hills behind Lamai. I hadn't done that in months. The island looked different from up high. The sea shimmered. The rooftops of the town looked small and tidy. And the bar, that little corner of my failed dream, was just a dot I couldn't even pick out anymore. I sat on a rock and stayed there for hours. I remembered something my father used to say. You can lose your money. You can lose your time. But don't ever lose your reason. For the first time in months, I realized I didn't come to Thailand just to open a bar. I didn't come here for Nok either. I came because I needed to start again. So I closed the bar. I sold off what I could, the fridge, the sound system, even the little turtle sign Nok had painted. The lease had 3 months left and I forfeited the deposit, but I didn't care. I walked out with 2 suitcases, a scooter, and my monthly income from back home still coming in. It wasn't much, but all that I needed. I moved into a smaller place inland, away from the beachfront. It was quiet, surrounded by palm trees and the occasional rooster. I read books, cooked my own meals, rode the scooter into town every few days just to sit at a cafe and watch the world go by. That's when I met May. She wasn't from the bar. She wasn't loud or flirty. She worked at a small cafe I started visiting, the kind of place with wooden chairs and mismatched cups. She served me tea the first time I went in, and when she asked where I was from, she genuinely listened. Over the next few weeks, I kept going back. Sometimes we'd talk, sometimes we'd just smile. One morning, I arrived early. The place was empty. She brought me tea, then sat down at my table and asked me a question that stopped me cold. Why do you look so sad when you think no one is watching? I laughed, but not the broken kind. A real laugh. A surprised one. No one's ever asked me that, I said. I see a lot, she said. That's my job. It wasn't romantic at first. It wasn't fast or passionate or filled with promises. It was slow, steady, honest. May never asked me for money. She didn't even know I used to own a bar. When I told her, she laughed and said, "Sounds like too much stress." We took things slow, just walks, long talks, a meal here and there. For once, there was no rush, no pressure, and that felt like a kind of freedom I hadn't known I was missing. I started smiling again, really smiling, and this time I didn't lose sight of the red flags, because they weren't there. As I write this, I'm sitting outside my little rental with May beside me, shelling peanuts for a soup she wants to make tonight. The island feels different now, not because it changed, but because I did. I came to Thailand thinking I could outrun my past. I thought paradise was something you could rent, build, or buy. But the truth is, paradise isn't a place. It's peace, and after everything, the lies, the losses, the gut punches, I found it. Not in a beach bar, not in someone's eyes, but in starting again. And this time, on my terms. For an even crazier story about a bar girl who ruined a guy's pension by stealing his house, click the video on your screen right now. See you there.